Hello everyone, today I want to show you how to make these beaded Kumihimo earrings using SuperDuos, and they look like this. So you get this nice kind of almost teardrop shape with the braid running all the way through the middle. Then we have the SuperDuos that's then connected, where we then add our embellishment through the SuperDuos as well, and it gives this nice sparkle using those bicones, I think. So these are the earrings, and I've made a whole set to go with this, so you can make a whole set if you want to. This is the bracelet. Looks like that. Again, it's the same basic technique. We'll just add our embellishment differently to make it into a different piece of jewellery. So the bracelet looks like this. And then I've also made a necklace. So this one I've made so it curves around the neck nicely. But again, the same basic technique. So obviously you can just make them all the same beads and colours to make an actual set. But in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to do the earrings of this set. So if you want to learn how to do these, then stay tuned. So these are the things that we'll need. Now we need a round Kumihimo disc for this because we're making a round braid. And then I have a selection of a few different beads here. Now these are just the ones that I'm going to be using. I have two regular rounds here, seed beads, both black in my case. These ones are 8/0s. They're going to be the main part of the braid that we're going to be making. And then these are 11/0s. We're going to be using these after we've made the braid. And then the SuperDuos that I'm using here are also going to be part of the braid. I'm just working with a mix of neon colours. I thought that would be nice, so the black make the neon colours stand out really nicely. You can also use whatever colours you want to. And finally here I've got some bicones. And these are also black. They have a nice shine to them, so going to add a bit of sparkle. Now you could use bicones. You could really use many different shapes of beads for those, because we're also going to be adding these in after we've made the Kumihimo braid. And then the cord that I'm using here, this is S-lon, a 0.4mm in thickness. I'm going to use that to make the main part of the Kumihimo braid. And then I also here have S-lon size D. So this is like a sewing thread. We're going to use that with our beading needle here to then go in afterwards and add these extra beads onto the braid. But you could easily use something else than this, so something like fireline will work just as well. And then also here I have my Kumihimo ends that we're just going to finish off the braid with to be able to turn them into those earrings. So let's get it all together and let's get started. So we then first of all need to cut 4 lengths here of a 0.4mm S-lon of about 60 centimeters each, because then what I'm going to do is take all the ends, put them all together, and then fold it over to put the ends together like this. So then come up here and find roughly where the middle is. I tie a regular overhand knot with all the cords, and then in my case I've just attached a small piece of wire here just to help kind of signify that's the middle, but also help pull through the braid. So you then want to attach all your cords here to put your knot down through the centre. We have the wire coming out of the back there. You could also use a Kumihimo weight, that's fine. And then we just want to put one length of cord on each side of the dot there. So I'm not going to worry about the numbers. And then we just need to start on a regular 8-strand braid. So I take my top left one, release that, bring it over the middle and down, stay on the left side here. Then take the right one from the bottom pair, bring it over and up, and then stay on the right side of the top. Turn to your next pair. Top left one, bring it down, and bottom right one, and bring it up. And then you want to keep going like this until we have about 1 centimeter of just the braid here, before we're then going to add in our beads. Now that we've then made that little section of braid of about 1 centimeter, we now want to start adding on our beads. So I've now added all my beads here, and this is how you want them to sit on all your lengths of cord. So on this one you can see there's quite an obvious pattern to the setup here. I'm just going to go through that, but then what I've also done is take a picture of this and put it on my website so you can have a bit more of a closer look in detail. And I'm going to put a link to that in the description box below. So to then look at the setup here, I'm going to start with my top ones. The next one that I'm due to take is my top left one and bring it down, and then my bottom right one and bring that up. It's just the way that I work. So what I've done is these two top cords are all filled with the 8/0 seed beads, and in my case I've just chosen that black colour. And in total on here I have 23 on each of my lengths, and it's the exact same thing on the bottom ones here. 23 of each of my 8/0s there, in my case the black colour, and that's the same thing on both sides. Now on the sides here you can see the top left one and the bottom right one, I also have just the 8/0s on them, so that's the exact same as the top ones, and again there's 23 in each of these. Now the other two are the ones where I have my SuperDuos on, and those are the only ones that kind of stand out here. So on both of them are the same as each other. Not the colours of the SuperDuos, but that again is real up to you how you want to do that. In my case then I started out with one of my 8/0s, so the black one there, then one SuperDuo, one 8/0, one SuperDuo, and then I alternate that all the way throughout until the end, and I have 23 in total here as well. So in total 23 of the 8/0s and SuperDuos together, alternating one at a time. And I also make sure you want to finish off on one of the 8/0s there. And it's the same on the other side, the exact same thing. You start with one 8/0 and then alternate throughout and have 23 in total there. Now what I've done with my colours, because I'm using these neon ones where I have 4 different neon colours, I'm just using green, orange, pink and yellow, and then I go into the same green, orange, pink and yellow and so on. And then on here it's just pink, yellow, green, orange, pink, yellow, green, orange. So that's all I've done. You can obviously set up your colours however you want to. So the last thing that I just want to mention is how you work with your disc here. Now like I mentioned, the next one that I'm due to take is my top left one and bring that down and then turn my disc. That's how I work. And if you take the top left one or the bottom right one as to start with when you're doing a new pair, then that's the exact same thing, and you want to set up your beads just how they are here, the same as me. Now if you start with your top right one or your bottom left one, what you need to do is put on the beads in the mirror image there. So if you hold a mirror in front of it, imagine that you have that, and then you put them on in the mirror image. So that just means those two cords need to swap over. In this case that's obviously not a big deal with the top and bottom ones because they're the same anyway, but it's just the principle of it. And then you need to swap over the pairs here along the middle of the disc. So the top two swap over the middle and the bottom two swap over the middle as well. So it's basically going to be the mirror image. So that's if you start with your top right one or your bottom left. That's the opposite way to the way that I'm working. So you just want to bear that in mind and put on your beads in the correct way. So once we then have all our beads added here, we need to then continue with the braid and incorporate the beads into the braid. So I take my top left one, that's the next one I'm due to take, to start the next pair. Then as I'm releasing my cord, I'm also going to release one bead, let it drop all the way down into the middle there. And then you need to make sure you tuck in that bead underneath the cord in the middle. If it doesn't do it by itself, because it might do it by itself, just make sure to do it with your fingers. And bring the cord down and then take my bottom right one, and as I'm releasing the cord, I'm releasing one bead and letting that drop down to the middle there. And then turn to your next pair. And then it doesn't matter what direction you turn your disc in for an 8-strand braid here. And then take the next one. Now this is the one where I have my SuperDuos on, but we haven't quite reached them yet. We just have an 8/0 first, a regular round. And let that drop down and continue. Finish off this pair. So every time you're crossing over a cord, you're just basically releasing a bead. And I've also got a more detailed tutorial on how to do beaded Kumihimo. If you need that, it could maybe be helpful. I'm going to put a link to that in the description box below. Otherwise, you just want to continue doing this until you used up all your beads here and you have that length of braid then coming out on the back of your disc, and you can see your beads forming that pattern. We're going to have the SuperDuos sitting along the sides of the braid. I've now used up all my beads here, so what you'll have is your braid with your beads on coming out on the back with this pattern. So you have these SuperDuos along the sides, both sides of your braid. So what we just need to do now is repeat the step at the beginning, where we just have a little section of braid to kind of close off the section of beads here. So you just want to continue with the next pair as you've been doing, just without adding beads in. And just for about the same length, so another about 1 centimetre or so, so it equals the other end. So once I've done that, we need to finish off the end here so we can take it off the board. And then all I'm going to do is the last pair that I just used with this, so I'm going to go to the opposite one, and then I'm going to take cords that are diagonally opposite each other. So in my case I'm taking these two first of all. It doesn't really matter which ones you start with because we're going to be using them all. And this is just to make sure that the end that we're going to make here is not going to be too bulky, so we can finish it off nicely. Take the other cords from that same pair, tie a knot over the middle, and then take the last ones here for the last pair, take your 2 cords, tie a knot over the middle, and the last ones. So we're tightening this off nicely and securely so we can take it off the board without worrying about our cords coming undone. But we also haven't bulked up the end too much. So there we go. So here we now have a little piece of braid with the pattern that looks like this. So now that we have this piece of braid ready, what I just want to do is get rid of the ends here, so finish off the ends of it so it's easy to work with. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue around here, then cut off the excess cord, then again down here just remove my wire, and then I'm going to show you the next step. I now have my short length of braid ready here after I've cut off all the excess cords and got rid of the wire there. And then we obviously need 2 of these because we need to make 2 earrings. And then what we need to do now is start getting it into the shape. So basically we're going to have this kind of almost teardrop shape. We're going to fold the braid over like this. I'm just going to sit like this, but obviously we just need to use these SuperDuos to add beads in between there as well, which is then also going to help hold the shape exactly how we want it to. So then what we need to do is get our beading needle out, and I've already threaded a piece of my thread on there, and then I've tied a regular knot just on the bottom, just to have a bit of a stopper there. Now just work with however much is comfortable for you. Doesn't need to be too long because obviously this is just an earring that we're working with. But then we need to take this thread that we got ready with the needle on and start attaching this. So we first need to just attach it to one end here. So I'm going to just be going through the braid, just where it's open braid with no beads on. We have that little space there, just to secure the thread in place to begin with, and just go back through a couple of times from one side to the other to make it nice and secure in there. Something like that. And then when you're happy, I'm going to come out to the side that's going to be the inside of it. Obviously if you just made it one colour then it doesn't matter, but if you have a preference, you want to go to the side that's going to be the inside first. I prefer to do that one first, I find that easier. And then I want to just move down towards where my beads start as well with my needle here. Something like that. And then to get up to the first SuperDuo, what I'm going to do is actually go through the first of my rounds, 11 O's there, oh sorry, 8 O's that I put on into the actual braid. Go through that. It's just to make the thread as seamless as possible so you don't really see the thread here. So, and then I'm passing through the next one. So I'm just going to go into the next one on the braid, and the one that's pretty much the closest to that SuperDuo. So in my case that's here. And we just want to stay with our 8 O's that are right close to each other, just so we don't have a lot of thread showing, like that. And then now we need to start adding in the other beads as well. So I'm then getting my 11 O's ready here, so my small beads that I'm going to use to add in alongside my bicones as well. So I've got all them ready. So I'm then going to take my needle here, and then we need to start moving from the very first, that bead will coming out from right next to that SuperDuo and go into that first SuperDuo. So for that I'm just going to start with 2 of my 11 O's here, get them on my needle, and then go from there and up into the second hole of the SuperDuo, so the hole that's not used, and go through. This is just to kind of get in position, so like that. So they sit and kind of just continue from the braid, and obviously I'm using the same kind of beads, so they're black and also the same shininess on them, so it kind of just blends in. So then from the first one there, the first few gaps in between, I'm only going to be using one bicone there because it's going to be a smaller space. So I add one bicone onto my needle, go through the next SuperDuo, and then another one, just a single bicone, go through the next SuperDuo, and the last one. So we're going to have a total of 3 on their own here on one side, just like that. And then as you can see, if we're pulling tight, it's going to give it a natural curve, just like that, but we need to keep going. So for the next one, we need 2 of our 11 O's there. Go through to the next SuperDuo. The next one we just need 1. We're now getting down towards the middle, what's going to be the middle of the teardrop on the bottom. So just the 1 here. And again on the other side of this one, also just 1. Because now we're moving up the other side. So in my case here, this yellow bead, this yellow SuperDuo on the inside, is going to be my middle one, We're now moving up the other side again, and we just want to mirror what we just done on the other side. So that means we go back up, so now it's 2. There. And then we go into the single bicones, all the way up, filling up the rest of the 3 gaps we've got left here. And the next one, also a single bicone. And then the very last one, in between there. And then, just to repeat again, as we did in the beginning where we started, we need to go back down to the braid. So we just want to add 2 of our 11/0s here, and then go into the nearest 8/0 on the braid, close to that SuperDuo, to work our way back up to the other side. And as you can see, as I'm pulling, it's going to give it that nice curve that we want. And this is going to then be the inside of that earring. So, I'm going to move away back out again. So you just want to see what beads are closest to each other, so we can make it blend in nicely. Like that. And then on this side, I'm going to go back through the braid again, so where there's just a braid with cord and no beads on the end. Just a couple of times to secure this side of the inside there in place. And you want to make sure you now just pull quite nice and tight, so you make sure you double check out all the gaps in between the SuperDuos close up, so you won't have any exposed thread if you can help it. And then go back through here a couple of times, that braid again, as you're then tightening up that middle. So just make sure that it's nice and tight, and then I'll show you the next step. So now that we've made sure that this is nice and tight, what I actually want to do before I then move to the outside is bring the 2 ends of our braid together here, so it's going to stay in shape and keep its nice teardrop shape there. So I'm going to cross from this side that I'm coming out from with the thread and go over to the other side, also just where we have the bare braid with no beads on, just to connect the 2 sides together. And then I'm going to start pulling them in. So these 2 ends are going to end up sitting right next to each other. And again, just the same principle, go back and forth a few times to make it nice and secure. So it's going to stay in place without you having to hold it in place, so we can keep working with it. So go back and forth a few times. And then also what you can do is take your thread and wrap it around here just a couple of times and keep hold of it, and then go back through the other way. That's also just going to help kind of pull the 2 sides together, just like that. So there we go. And then you can just do this until you feel like it's nice and secure. So when you then feel it's nice and secure, what you want to make sure to then do is come to one side here, because we're going to start adding the outside embellishment, and you just want to make sure you have the thread coming out close to where your first bead here is, kind of like we did on the inside, so that when we need to go through the first bead here, not too much thread is going to be showing, if any at all. It's just going to blend in nicely. So there we go. And then straight from that very first bead that we've gone through, we want to pick up our very next bicone. So just a bicone on its own, because we just need to make a connection point here, and then go through the very first SuperDuo, just like that. So that sits nicely there, and it blends in, and you can see it fills the space, so there's not really too much thread showing. The next one we then want to do, we want to start going into the more regular pattern. So we want 1 11/0, and then 1 bicone, and again 1 11/0, and that's going to fill in the next space nicely. So go to your next SuperDuo here, go through that, and then when you're pulling that, you can see that's going to fill that nicely. Next one's going to be the same. So 1 11/0, 1 bicone, and 1 11/0. Go through the next one, next SuperDuo there, and you braid like that. So that's the 3rd bicone that we've added, but kind of the 2nd one in the normal pattern. Next one again is going to be the same thing. So 111-0, 1 bicone and 111-0. Going down towards the side here. So moving away towards the middle of it, so on the outside. So there we go, that's filled those in. Now we need to change it up a little bit because the spacing on these ones are going to be a little bit larger. So what we'll need is, I'm going to take 1 11-0 and then do 1 bicone. And then we need to take 2 11-0s on the other side of that bicone. Go through the next one. So there, that fills that in nicely. And the next one down here, we're almost completely on the bottom. So we want to do, in this case, 2 11-0s on each side of the bicone now, to completely fill in the space nicely. Because you want to make sure you don't have any thread showing. You could do it differently than this if you prefer a different pattern or if you're using some different beads. But just make sure you fill in the gap so you don't have any thread showing. That's the main thing really. Pull that. So now we've come to the middle there, so we're going to go up the other side. And basically we're going to then replicate but go in the opposite direction. So we start with the one where we have 2 11-0s, 1 bicone and 2 11-0s, just like the one we just added. Go through the next one. Now we need to add 2 11-0s, 1 bicone and 1 11-0, because then that gap is slightly smaller. Through the next one. And then this is where we'll go into the other pattern of just 1 11-0 and 1 bicone and just 1 11-0, and that's the one we then repeat 3 times in total on each side. So again, 1 11-0, 1 bicone and just 1 11-0. Go through your next super duo, and then we're almost complete all the way around. Go through the last one, and then we reach the top again, and this is where we're just adding our very last bicone just to fill in that gap, and then we just need to reach the bead that's incorporated into the braid that's going to fit nicely. So I'm going to take this one, go through that, and then that bicone is going to sit there and blend in completely. So just like that. And then this is what it's going to look like basically. So all that's left to do now is then take this thread and just basically finish this off. So I'm going to go through my braid again, up where there's just a braid with no beads, and just go back and forth here a couple of times, just to be able to secure it in place. And then you can tie some knots if you want to. If you pull in this, make sure that you've pulled it. You don't want to pull it so tight so it goes out of shape, but just pull it tight enough so you just double check all the way around that you can't see any thread showing. So that's all you want to make sure of. And then as you're doing this, you can then also just go through with your needle, and then just instead of pulling it all the way through, just pull it gently. Just need to get my tail out there, and then go back through the loop a couple of times to make a knot basically, to help secure it off, because then we can end up cutting off the excess cord here, and then you just want to do that when you feel it's nice and secure. So here we have the finished braid into the shape that we want it to be with the embellishment, and then also because we added this embellishment both inside and outside, it holds the shape really nicely, so it's definitely not going to go anywhere. So all we need to do now is finish off that end and make it into an earring. Now all you need to do is take your Kumihimo end, something like this. It's a bell shape. I'm just going to be using this. This is 8mm size. It's going to fit over this perfectly. Just add some glue in there and then pop it over the ends, and then obviously let it dry. I already have a tutorial that shows how you finish off Kumihimo ends, so that's on bracelets, but it's the same principle really. And then once you've done that, you can attach this to whatever earring findings you want to use. You'll then have your earrings finished, and they'll look a bit something like this. Obviously I've just chosen to use these colours and types of beads. You can use whatever you want to, and you can get so many different looks with this kind of technique, whatever beads that you use. So that's completely up to you obviously. You can make them really bright like this, where you have the black background that really makes the neon stand out, or make a more daytime or evening look. So that's completely up to you because you have those bicones that also add that little bit of sparkle. So that's how you make these earrings. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this beaded Kumihimo bracelet, and what you have is little hedgehogs or porcupines, whatever you want it to be, going all the way around looking like this. So on the inside of your bracelet you can have the underbellies, so it's also nice and comfortable to wear, and then you have your hedgehogs or porcupines up here depending what you want it to be. So if you want to learn how to make this, then keep watching.